The bright lights of the CNN studio blazed down on what was about to become the most explosive political confrontation of the year. Rudy Giuliani, the 80-year-old former mayor of New York City, sat across from Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, the 42-year-old rising star from Texas. What started as a routine political debate was about to turn into a complete demolition. Giuliani had just finished attacking Crockett's credentials, calling her another inexperienced voice trying to tear down America. He leaned back in his chair with that familiar, smug smile, clearly expecting the young Democrat to crumble under his decades of political experience. But what Jasmine Crockett said next didn't just surprise him. It left the former America's mayor completely speechless and stunned the entire nation. This wasn't just another political debate. This was the moment when preparation met arrogance, when youth confronted experience, when one devastating response changed everything. The stage was set for what political analysts are already calling one of the most brutal takedowns in modern television history. Giuliani thought he was facing just another young politician. He had no idea he was about to meet his match. Rudolph William Louis Giuliani walked into that CNN studio carrying the weight of what many considered a legendary political career. At 80 years old, he was once America's mayor. The man who led New York City through the dark days after September 11, 2001, his tough guy persona and no-nonsense approach had made him a household name across the country. But that was decades ago. In recent years, Giuliani's reputation had taken serious hits. His role as Donald Trump's personal attorney had led to legal troubles, disbarment proceedings, and countless controversies. Still, he carried himself with the confidence of someone who believed his experience and name recognition would intimidate any opponent, especially a young congresswoman from Texas. Giuliani had appeared on countless shows, debated seasoned politicians, and faced down some of the toughest interviews in political media. In his mind, this would be just another easy victory against what he saw as an inexperienced politician who got lucky in an election. Jasmine Felicia Crockett represented everything that the old guard of politics feared. She was young, brilliant, fearless, and completely unimpressed by traditional power structures. At 42, the Texas Congresswoman had already made waves in Washington with her sharp questioning during committee hearings and her ability to cut through political nonsense with surgical precision. But Crockett wasn't just another politician. She was a former public defender and civil rights attorney who had spent years fighting for justice in courtrooms across Texas. She knew how to handle hostile witnesses, how to break down complex arguments, and, most importantly, how to stay calm under pressure while delivering devastating cross-examinations. What made Crockett particularly dangerous was her preparation. She didn't just show up to debates hoping to wing it. She came armed with facts, receipts, and a strategic mind that could turn any attack back on her opponent. Her colleagues in Congress had learned to respect her homework, and her constituents loved her authenticity. This wasn't just a debate between two politicians. It was a clash between two completely different eras of American politics. Giuliani represented the old boys club, where name recognition and tough talk were supposed to be enough to win arguments. Crockett represented the new generation of politicians who believed that facts, preparation, and authentic conviction would always beat empty rhetoric. The topic of their debate was particularly charged: criminal justice reform and accountability. For public officials, it was territory where both had strong opinions, but where their approaches couldn't have been more different. Giuliani wanted to relitigate his tough-and-crime legacy from the 1990s, while Crockett was focused on modern solutions to systemic problems. CNN had built this as a discussion about the future of American justice. But everyone in that studio could feel the underlying tension. This was really about whether the old ways of doing politics, relying on reputation and intimidation, could still work against a new generation that refused to be impressed by anything other than results. The audience was split between Giuliani's supporters, who remembered his post-9/11's leadership, and Crockett fans, who had watched her viral committee moments online. Both sides were ready for their champion to dominate, but only one would leave the studio victorious. "Your little committee moments might play well on social media," Giuliani said. But this is the real world. This is where grown-ups make actual decisions that affect real people's lives. Crockett remained perfectly calm, but those who knew her well could see the slight tightening around her eyes that meant she was about to unleash something devastating. Mr. Giuliani, since you want to talk about the real world and grown-up decisions, maybe we should discuss some of the decisions you've made more recently, she said. Should we talk about your legal troubles, your involvement in spreading election misinformation, or maybe we should discuss how you've spent the last few years? The studio fell silent. Even the camera operator seemed to sense that something significant was about to happen. Giuliani's confident smirk faltered for just a moment before he tried to regain his composure. I'm not here to discuss frivolous lawsuits and political witch hunts, he said. But his voice lacked its earlier conviction. Is that what we're calling it? Crockett asked, her eyebrows raised in genuine surprise. Because I have some documents here that might suggest otherwise. She reached into her folder and pulled out a stack of papers, placing them carefully on the table in front of her. Movement was deliberate and theatrical. She knew the cameras would focus on those documents, and she knew Giuliani would be wondering what they contained. But before we get to that, she continued, let me address your point about experience and tough decisions. You're absolutely right that this is the real world, and that real decisions affect real people. So, let's talk about some real people, shall we? The moderator tried to regain control of the interview, but both participants ignored him. The tension in the studio was electric, and everyone could sense that they were witnessing something special. Giuliani was no longer leaning back confidently in his chair. He was sitting up straight, his eyes fixed on those documents, clearly trying to figure out what Crockett had prepared, for the first time since the interview began. He looked genuinely concerned. What are you getting at, Congresswoman? He asked, trying to sound dismissive, but failing to hide the uncertainty in his voice. Crockett smiled again. And this time, it wasn't the polite smile of a politician. It was the smile of a prosecutor who had just caught a witness in a lie. Oh, I think you know exactly what I'm getting at, Mr. Giuliani, she said. But since you want to play this game, let's play it properly. Jasmine Crockett looked down at her carefully organized documents, then back up at Giuliani with a kind of calm confidence that only comes from being absolutely prepared. The studio lights seemed to intensify around her, as she prepared to deliver what would become one of the most talked about moments in recent political television. Mr. Former Mayor Giuliani, you've spent the last 15 minutes questioning my experience and suggesting that I don't understand the real-world consequences of criminal justice policies, she said. You've implied that my work as a public defender was somehow less valuable than your work as a prosecutor and mayor? So, let me ask you a direct question. She paused, letting the tension build. Every camera in the studio was focused on her, and even the crew members had stopped what they were doing to listen. In your opinion, should public officials be held to the same standards of justice as everyone else? She asked. Or do you believe that certain people, perhaps those with political connections or famous names, should be treated differently by our justice system? Giuliani shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The question seemed simple enough, but something about the way Crockett asked it made him suspicious. Of course, everyone should be held to the same standard, he replied, trying to sound confident. Justice is blind, as they say. That's been my philosophy my entire career. I'm glad to hear you say that, Crockett said, her smile widening, because that brings me to something I think our viewers would be very interested to discuss. Crockett picked up the first document from her stack, holding it so the cameras could see it clearly. This is a court filing from the State Bar of New York, dated just 6 months ago, she said. It details the proceedings that led to your law license being ...